Good evening, everybody. If the audience wouldn't mind taking your seat, we are about ready to begin. So good evening, everybody. Welcome to the 2025 NKC Candidate Forum. Just a reminder that the election is Tuesday, April 8th from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the North Kansas City YMCA for all North Kansas City voters. I'd like to begin by giving an enormous thank you to the NKC debate team, specifically Amanda Dollinger, Robin Love, and Simon Johnson. We are going to start with the candidates for City Council. From 6 to 7, we'll take a small break and a reset, and then begin with our mayoral candidates from 7:15 to 8:15. All questions received before the forum have been given to the North Kansas City debate team. They will ask questions on their own. They have some of their own as well as the community ones that they have received. Real fast, we will be providing all candidates all of the questions that were submitted through at least the city after the forum, not before. And we would encourage all candidates, if they have a communication channel, to try to answer as many of those questions as possible. Again, we do appreciate everybody that did submit their questions in advance. We do have question cards. If you did not submit, we have question cards on the back table that we will pick up after. The questions will be round robin, and candidates will have 3 minutes to answer. And with that, I hand it over to our experts.
All right, can everyone hear me all right? Perfect. Firstly, for a question from the forum, we're going to start on the left and then move around. Everyone will get 3 minutes, as she said. All right, are we all ready? Cool. Firstly, we need to be more aggressive on those who do not maintain their property. Could the council person from that ward assist in getting this done? All right. Starting off, are you ready?
Hi. Well, I've had this discussion with some of my neighbors, and we don't have the answer for that right now. We don't, but there is, suggestions from my neighbors that we think we should bring up to the city and maybe, start there. Also, finding someone that's actually going to enforce this, because we have plenty of ideas. We just need to get them to the right people. And but yes, right now we don't have the right answer.
Are you able to elaborate a little bit on what suggestions and what ideas you do have?
Well, we do have for them to start giving them, like citations and following it up. Also, maybe charging them and using that money for other things that the city needs. But we do have to hold these people accountable because we have a lot of houses that are empty, and we have a lot of good people in this neighborhood that want to buy and they can't because they're sitting on properties. So.
All right, is there anything else you'd like to say on that, or are you ready to move on?
Yeah, that's about it.
Okay, cool.
This was one of the items that got relatively low scores in our most recent citizen or the resident survey that went out to everyone in town. We had a pretty decent response rate on this, but codes enforcement and just general maintenance in the residential areas was one of the areas with low scores, and actually had a pretty significant drop off from the time before the survey from one to the next. So it needs to be an area of focus. Our community development department does handle some of this. I see them drive around town. I work from home a lot of days, so a couple times a week I usually see a community development car come by, and occasionally they stop and take notes. But that being said, there is still things falling through the gaps. Always feel free to reach out to your council person, or the folks at the city are happy to help if you have specific concerns, and that just bringing attention to problem houses, that type of thing that you see, can help get a quicker response. But all in all, it is something that needs some work. We have room to grow here.
Certainly a complex issue, and there's some interesting questions about whose responsibility is between private contracts, between a landlord and their tenant. One question I think that we have not pursued that we could go look down this avenue is landlords are essentially running a business. Should they be having a business license, and if they are not adequately doing what they need to do, can the city withhold that license to do business? Now, that's an open question that I've had with the city, still waiting the final response on that. So we'll see if that is a legally enforceable method of fixing some of these challenges.
Well, I am new here, so I look forward to learning more about the ordinances and the ways to enforce the different codes. Just off the top of my head, I think consistency would be really important. I would imagine that like one quick slap on the wrist isn't gonna fix the problem. So just figuring out a way to be consistent and communicative with the owners of those properties would be ideal.
Is there anything else anyone would like to add, or are we ready for the next question? Cool.
Can everyone hear me okay? Okay. What will you do to further the city's stated goal of encouraging and increasing individual home ownership? Not developers or large investors, but individual investors.
I'm first on this one, all right? Okay, yeah. This has been a long-term issue with the city. We are, if you look at the statistics, we're overwhelmingly rental occupancy rate. I think is getting close to 90% rentals in the community. One of the biggest challenges with this is North Kansas City is completely, one landlocked and fully developed. So any new development putting in new owner-occupied residencies is going to have to be redevelopment. It's going to take developer, someone coming in, buying the land and repurposing part of town. Bloom, North Kansas City, I think is maybe a template we could use. They're going in along Burlington at the north end of town there. Those will be owner-occupied townhomes, but it's a relatively small project. It's not a ton of units, but, somewhere to start. Part of this, I think, will be zoning and planning to make sure that we are setting out parts of our community we want to be single family. If if there's ways we can block off areas that we want to protect, that'll be helpful. And then the next piece will be finding a developer that wants to come in, acquire that land and put in something single family. There are, I think, some opportunities to use economic incentives there where the city still could come out ahead, tax-wise, redevelop, worth more, higher property taxes, come back to the city type of thing, but still incentivize, item that will align with what our residents want. It's tough to buy a house down here. Anybody that shopped in the past, years, even tried to buy or look, the houses, they go so quick. There's a huge demand for it. We just need to find a way to actually get those up and running for people to buy and join our community.
Like Connor said, we have about 4 square miles. There's so much ground, and there's largely far more demand given, we're surrounded by KC Mo. We're not ever going to be able to satisfy the demand for single-family homes in North Kansas City. That's just part of it. Now, realistically, what can we do? I think we should put a pressure to look at how we can include ownership in other structures, such as condos. So I would be a fan of, I'm not interested in necessarily subsidizing apartment buildings, through any sort of tax structure. Now, if they wanted to look at going more in a condo, and allowing other people to have ownership, I think that's much more interesting personally. So maybe that's not single family, but it is home ownership, and I do think that could create value that we don't have here.
Kind of similarly, we are kind of limited in space to build new single-family homes. I, again, look forward to learning more about the zoning and all of that, but it's also a complicated, tricky time in the world to just buy a home in general, to be able to afford a home in general. And I hope that we can find some creative ways to encourage people and to allow people to own some kind of property, whether that be single home or single family home. I think that would be ideal, but as we said, we're limited. with that option. So I think we're gonna have to think creatively, kind of like they said, to just find more options.
Yeah, I don't have the answer either. I think nobody does. We know what we want, but can we have it? It's just zoning. Some of these acres that we have. I mean, what are we gonna do? We don't want apartments. We want. We want people to own something. Maybe condos is the answer. I don't know. Townhomes. I don't know, but I mean, it's something that we all need to fight for. We're losing too many good neighbors because they can't buy anything, and I don't know where to go from here. We just have to figure it out all together.
All right, this is kind of a follow-up question on the home ownership issue. A lot of you guys mentioned zoning in your answers. What specifically do you mean by zoning, and how will this help solve the issue? And can you all just elaborate a bit on that if you do plan to implement zoning to solve the home ownership issue?
I'll note that I did not include zoning in my answer. Zoning is a complicated issue. And we have a board specifically for zoning. Certainly, I'm not going to say I don't have anything on my docket about specifically how they should be doing what they're doing. Would be take an open mind to whatever options they can bring to the table. I don't got much for you on this one. Sorry.
I think it's amazing that a lot of people want to live in North Kansas City. I will say that we've kind of created an appealing place for people around Kansas City. That's awesome. Kind of like I said, this is all I'm still learning. I'm very much in process, and I don't know a ton about zoning either. So I don't have a great answer for you. But I look forward to hopefully soon having a better one if we ever do this again.
Well, like I said, we don't have the answer. We don't. But we can say no to what we don't want, and, keep going. I mean, we can figure out something, but we can't just keep saying yes, and because it benefits whoever's sitting up here. So, that's really all I have.
Most of y'all probably know this maybe better than I do, but real generally, there's certain zoning areas around the city that lay out what types of building, what type of business, what type of residence can be put in there. We have a planning and zoning commission kind of oversees those and takes the first approach at laying that out or reviewing changes. So I'm going to defer to them on all matters. Usually they look at stuff and refer their recommendation to the council. But that means I think it's important as the city continues to become, as more redevelopment happens, as the city grows and progresses, it's important to revisit how the areas are zoned and make sure that still aligns with the city's strategic plan for what we want to accomplish and what we want to have here.
Sorry, it's not turning on. When is the city going to enforce the adopted provisions of the 2000? Okay. Okay, sorry. When is the city going to enforce the adopted provisions of the 2018 IRC Residential Building Code? The code as adopted is not being enforced by local building officials and their employees.
That is a great question that I do not have an answer to. I am grateful that I know that I'll be surrounded by great resources, by people who do have expertise on that question. I do love to research. I love to have a reason behind any answer that I'm going to give, any vote that I'm going to make. So as I continue, I'll definitely learn more. But I know there's great resources. I know there's other people on the council, other people with the city that I would defer to at this point for that question.
I am also new to this adventure. So, like, I'm here because I just see things that I don't like, and I want to see change. I know that I've heard from other candidates up here, or maybe not here, but before, that want to be a voice for their neighbors, and I don't know what's happened, but it seems like nobody's, here for them, and I don't have the answer either for that, but I'm willing to, to listen and learn and seek advice from the people that actually live here that want to see changes, and so I don't have the answer.
Building codes are not my area of expertise. I know there have been instances where residents have identified potential non-compliance of codes and brought that to attention. I think there's been a review process where the community development has been involved, and even an outside consultant. I'm not actually sure how that was resolved, but if codes aren't being enforced by our community development department, that is concerning. So please keep bringing that to our attention.
Not exactly sure where this question came from. It feels very specific in its nature. If the individual would like, a more clear answer, I think we would probably need more clear definitions of why they feel that way, what they're citing as evidence of the city not doing that, and I would love to take that conversation offline.
Sorry, it was a submitted question.
All right, so the city of North Kansas City is known for their restaurants, their parks, and their industry. The city of NKC currently collects property and utility tax. By reading the city's strategic plan, the city plans to propose a use tax in the near future. This tax will be on individual online purchases outside of the state, for example, online purchases such as from Amazon or other online retailers. How is the use tax justified? And again, this is another question submitted on the forum.
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
Use taxes are relatively common. Most people are probably paying one or should be paying use tax at a federal level if you're ordering a lot of stuff online. And I think Clay County also has one in place. But again, enforcement's always tough. This was a topic. It was on the strategic plan. It came up at a council meeting. There wasn't support for it. So in my mind, it's not going anywhere unless there's, some specific reason it would need to come back, which I'm not anticipating.
I am not a tax expert, so let's start there. And I'm sure I will ask about this question later and get the full details. As I recall from this item, the use tax is essentially some of these large corporations are not essentially paying the same sales tax or are not collecting the same sales tax as our local vendors. And so the question is, should we be collecting from them similar to we as you would buying from a store locally? And that's how it would be justified if it would have been implemented by the voters, which it was not.
Again, another topic that I don't know a ton about, but I have learned a lot from the last two people who spoke, which is helpful. And it sounds like that's not something that the community wanted to implement. It could always come back up again, and I hope that whoever asked the question is seemingly passionate about it and is willing to have more conversation and kind of share their perspective again in the future.
Does North Kansas City currently have a budget that is balanced? If so, or if not, why?
This is a somewhat tough question. We have ran a budget deficit every year that let me rephrase that. We have gone, when we've approved the budget every year I've been on council, it was approved with a budgeted deficit. The actual results have not always ended up as a deficit. I think the city's finance department tends to conservatively estimate tax revenues coming to the city to have a little bit of leeway there, which leads to it looking like it's going to run a deficit. That being said, I would, I'm a CPA in my day job. I'm an accountant. I would like to have the most accurate, up-to-date financial information as possible. So I'd prefer we go into the budgeting process with as close to an actual estimate as we can get instead of undershooting it. And then, from there, we just need to prioritize which items are wants versus needs. We're going to have a lot of capital-intensive spending coming up related to infrastructure on sewer, water, and sanitary sewer and storm water. That's going to be incredibly expensive. So we, finding a way to get the balanced budget before we get to that, and just be careful what we're spending, not run through our game and fund reserve or anything like that before we come to these huge infrastructure costs is going to be incredibly important. So, if you've paid attention to me during city council meetings, I fairly common will question costs and contract terms and that type of thing. I'll continue to do that going forward. But if we can get to a balanced budget, I'll feel better. It's going to be important with what we have coming up.
I'd like to just say what he said, but Connor really nailed it, and he does have the background to speak on this far better than probably most anybody else with the CPA background. We have been running mildly in a deficit. We need to, of course, be good steward of the funds of the local community. We also need to ensure that we are able to execute on some of these capital projects, because wastewater, while it's not necessarily super sexy, is really important as a city. So it's a delicate balance. And also ensuring that our local community supports our government here as well. We have become such a great city locally because we've attracted some of the top talent locally. And so ensuring that we allocate responsibly on that front too is important.
Having not worked directly with the city budget, I've looked over it a little bit. I definitely still have a lot to learn. I think similar to what Tom said, I think it's really important to be responsible, be good stewards of the tax dollars and the money for the city, and just listening to the community. I think seeing the really big numbers on like the infrastructure projects is kind of intimidating and probably scary for people, but they also are really important. And I think it's better to get ahead on those type of projects and spend the money before something goes wrong, rather than after, when it will probably end up costing more money anyway. So again, another thing I'm looking forward to learning about and kind of getting into the details. I think it's important to ask a lot of questions. I know that budgets require kind of some educated estimates on how much things are going to cost. So try to ask a lot of questions and do the best that we can to find those correct numbers.
I haven't looked into the budget. I'm sure we have a budget, and it's, I don't know, Kim. But I'd like to look into it because I know we need money in different areas that I hear. I mean, I've heard my council members say, we don't have the money for that. Well, I mean, we don't have the money for a lot of things, but somehow we end up finding it, and that's what I want to do, is find some way to find some of this money and improve on some of the things that are on my list, at least, and my neighbors, that are important to me and my neighbors, at least. So, but I don't know about the budget, but I'm looking forward to exploring that and, yeah, looking into it. And
All right, can everyone hear me now? Perfect. Okay, those are all the questions we got on the forum specifically. So before we get into our questions we came up with, we would like to give all of you an opportunity to talk about what specific issues you see in North Kansas City as a candidate that you plan on fixing if you are elected.
Trying to put it all on you there, Connor. Good job on dodging that. So, with the realistic expectations that we are just one arm or branch of the government, realistic expectations of what your council can do for you. One of the things I would like to see, especially is there are mayoral appointments to different boards. I would like us to involve more of our youth in that. I've asked, and we'll get the answer on exactly how young we can go. But I'd like to see just the way you are, participating in this event. I would like to see some of your compatriots who are residents here also be part of our boards and commissions that are a part of the city. Other things that I happen to feel passionate about that I'd like to learn more about our capability is seeing what we can do in terms of using our location here in Kansas City well. Certainly, we've gotten some park projects going on that'll be executed during this term. Really excited to see where they'll go, what else we can do to make ourselves the center of attraction, to bring others into North Kansas City, hopefully to spend their dollars, hopefully to spend, build tax revenue for our businesses. All those are very positive things. So I'd like to do anything that would help that.
There we go. I would say, just most importantly, I'm not necessarily here to push my own personal agenda. I definitely have opinions and thoughts on all the things, but I'm also here to represent Ward 1. So I want to make sure to be involved in my community, hearing what my neighbors think about different topics, hearing what's important to them. I think first and foremost that I love living in North Kansas City. I've been here almost 2 years, so I definitely want to focus on continuing to make this and improving it, making it a safer and more vibrant community, continuing to get people and neighbors involved and speaking out on what their thoughts and feelings and goals are. And I think affordable housing, kind of like we talked about, is really important, and even like on a national level is something that should be focused on. And yeah, I just love that it's a fun place for families, for people to come spend time, spend their money.
so things that are important to me and my neighbors, of course, are, like housing, homelessness, speeding, just community, just coming together, things like that are important to me. And I like to see some changes. So that's what I'm here for.
North Kansas City is a great place to live and work. I want to do my part to help that continue, and probably most specifically, I'm passionate about the city's finances. So what I can do to help make sure those are going in a good direction, and the city staying in a positive position to be able to fund what our residents want and need, and keep the benefits that we're all used to having here. We've implemented some goals into the strategic plan since I've been on city council related to our financial statement audit report findings and that type of thing. So continuing to work towards those will also be important for me. And just also, it's always good to get more input from residents. I've been on city council for just a little over 2 years, and I've learned you get a few people reach out, and I love hearing that, but I'm not getting anywhere close to a whole picture of what the people of Ward 3 want to have done. So the more I hear from you all, the better I feel going into a decision.
All right, so to expand off of some things that you all just said, a lot of you mentioned in your answers specifically engaging the community more and hearing complaints from the community. What specifically will you do to engage your residents? For example, Bailey, you mentioned engaging the youth more. So what specific policies are you advocating for that would engage residents more?
I think as we get going on the next term, I'll probably be able to give a more complete answer. But I think it's really important to seek out the voices who aren't necessarily being heard, maybe they don't have time to come to things like this. Maybe they don't have the time in their schedule to even think about things in the city because they're busy taking care of their family. So to somehow engage and make space for those people who don't necessarily have the time to get out of their schedule and get out of their space to come to us, whether that means even just going on walks and talking to neighbors, going to the park, going to community events, just trying to find the people who probably do have opinions, who probably do have things that they think about and want, and just may not have the time or the space or the know-how to make their voices heard. So.
Yes, also, I think engaging in community activities, holding, festivals or just anything to bring the people together. But also I want to do like some meet and greets and meet with some of these homeowners, residents that, have frustrations and don't know who to talk to. And I feel like a lot of my neighbors have felt comfortable with me to be able to open up, and I feel that I can be a voice for them, and like I said, a whole lot of other people that don't feel like their voices are being heard, and I want to be there for them, and I don't know, just.
I can't take any credit for this, but I've noticed the city staff especially have been putting on more open house type events, especially related to the budget. So, I always encourage having more of those and making them accessible to the public here, sometimes around the weekends or after work to try to get where more people can come to them. And especially those budget ones, the budget really lays out a lot of what is going to happen over the next year. So I would encourage, anyone, if you have any thoughts whatsoever if you've gone through the budget with deep dive or just, general concerns, show up to those budget events and let your council people know, because if stuff can get into the budget before we get into the next fiscal year, it is much easier to, make sure that happens or doesn't happen, depending on what it is.
So I believe I pointed to one thing that I'd like to see, which is a youth member on the boards and commissions that would be able to handle that. That will be somewhat controlled by state law, as well as the mayoral position in appointing those. Would be very excited to get to vote and appointing some youth members. Two, I think we have some mechanism for this. The EIC is bringing new voices to North Kansas City that maybe we haven't heard from as much, really taking into account what their suggestions are is a part of this, and as well as clearing any roadblocks for them to execute on the vision that the city breathed into life of that committee. I think Ward 2 has done a really good job of listening to its residents. We have, through the council positions, opened up some open forums. I'd like to continue that tradition. I think that that's something that we've gotten going and we can continue to do. And lastly, personally, I generally go to our business council meetings as best I can. I get to go to one of those pretty much every other week at least, And so I get to hear from the business community as well, which they don't have votes, but it's important to listen and see what we can do within reason to help support them and grow what's around us.
Homelessness within Kansas City is fairly prevalent. What would you like to see during your time in office to help this issue?
I don't have the answer for homelessness. I know what in my head, what I'd like to see. But for me to sit up here and I just know that whatever Rita needs, I think we all need to come together and help her fix or try to fix this problem as much as, she can. But it's not only North Kansas City, it's everybody around us that needs to step it up.
This was just said, but it's a bigger issue than just North Kansas City or even the KC Metro for that matter. It's a nationwide issue that keeps growing as cost of living goes up. The city funds Northland Assistance Center to help with emergency housing and lodging during severe weather and other priority events. Something like to continue to support North Kansas City through the Harris Charitable Grant Program also funds a number of nonprofit organizations providing lodging and food assistance too. And something I heard, Rita Pierce was telling us at a meeting recently, I learned that there is not a homeless shelter anywhere north of the river in the Kansas City area. So if we could collaborate with, at a bigger level up north of the river, especially Clay County and Platte County, Riverside, the other communities out here, and get a shelter north of the river, I think that would go a long way too. It's obviously a bigger issue that can be solved right here at the North Kansas City level, but working with other partners around here would go a long way towards helping locally.
All those answers are correct. Homelessness is not something that we're going to fix. That does not free us of the obligation of doing something about it. Those answers are hard to come by, and they're expensive, and they're long term. These are not things that you get to snap your finger about. I do not believe that just because we are so small, we should be completely absolve ourselves of trying to do something, though. I would like to hear, and this is something, if you know anybody who's watching this, please come find me, because I really do want to know this answer. What is best in class? What has been proven to work? Not the easy answer, not the, we're going to fix it tomorrow answer, but how do we take people and provide them the support, recognize that they won't always be able to do it, and they will need to come back through a second time, but provide that and help long-term with some of this. I do believe we need to do something about that. I hear us talk about spending a lot of money on pet shelter. Honestly, I care more about the people.
In a similar vein to everyone here, I think it's really important to look at the root cause and kind of try to start there instead of just doing Band-Aid quick solutions, which aren't necessarily bad either. I think it's all-encompassing, but to really make a difference and to really help the people in North Kansas City, I think it's important to look at the root causes and try to focus on some of those. Kind of similar, working with the surrounding area, working with cities around North Kansas City, working with different programs that may not be within North Kansas City, but try to have some partnership with the community around us, try to kind of get on the same page. I don't think that there will be a long-term solution if we're all working in these tiny little pockets on little Band-Aid solutions. I think that if there's a way to focus on helping the most people long-term instead of a few people short-term, that would be ideal. I know we've talked about affordable housing. I think that's huge. Even things like community gardens, helping small businesses in town, increasing jobs that are available. within walking distance, within biking distance, public transportation. Like there's just so many different factors and different things to look at. So overall, I'd say getting to the root of the issue.
All right, cool. What will you do during your time in office to enforce school safety, specifically in regards to the circulation of illicit substances within the North Kansas City School District?
Sorry, it's hard to remember the order sometimes. I think it's important to remember that the North Kansas City School District is a separate entity from the city. They have their own, elected officials. There's some school board elections at the same time as the next city election here. They have their own tax levy, that type of thing. But, specifically, there are two schools in Norclay and the Northtown High School in the city limits. So, honestly, it's a little bit out of my depth. I wasn't aware there were issues going on there, but knowing that there are, if there's ways the city can collaborate or our police department can collaborate with what the officials over at the school district want to see, I'd be glad to offer support in any way that we could.
Connor, I like it when I get to go behind you. Easy answers picking right here. Connor's exactly right. Separate entity. The city should do everything it can to help support, but we help. We are not the front line on that situation. We're certainly open to how we can participate and getting the best answer possible.
Similarly, I think school safety is more at the state, federal level. And maybe there's something to say for encouraging people to get more involved in state and federal government, maybe making that more accessible for people. I don't know necessarily what that would look like, making a resource so people know who our state representatives are, who our federal representatives are, make it easier to email, to call, to hopefully make a difference with some of those kind of state and federal laws that might affect that more. Like they said, any way that we can support, I think is important.
Yeah, that's a tough question that, again, we don't have answers to, but we can meet with the school, of course, have our city, back up whatever the school needs to keep you guys safe, and maybe meeting with some of you guys that can give us ideas what will work. I mean, we're not in there. We don't know. My kids aren't there, but but yeah, there needs to be something done to help you guys, feel safe. But we're willing to listen and just find ideas, or I don't know. But it's something that we all have to work together again on.
What is your stance on allowing homeowners to make their residence an Airbnb?
I probably have a unpopular opinion about this, so I guess I'm glad I'm running unopposed. I think every homeowner has some rights of what they can do with their property. So if you say you cannot do this, you are prohibiting that owner from using their property the way that they wish to do it. Now, if they are operating an Airbnb, is that a business? Are they earning money from it? I'd say so, yes. Then it becomes, are they acting responsibly as a business? And there the city does have enforcement methods. So should they be paying taxes? I would say that makes sense to me. Personally, but outright banning it, I don't necessarily understand how you can do that as a government entity, is stripping away a homeowner's rights to use their property. I don't believe it's against our current zoning. Is it? So.
I guess I can share my personal opinion on it. Again, I think this is definitely a community question. I think that people often forget how much running an Airbnb does affect your neighbors and affects the people around you and the people on your street, especially depending on what the people who are staying at the Airbnb are doing, and you don't really have control over that, even if you own the space. So, personally, I don't love the idea of having a ton of Airbnbs around. Kind of like what Tom said, I also don't think it's necessarily fair to outright ban something that someone owns and to tell them what they can and can't do with it within reason. But personally, I don't want them around where my kid is. I don't want them around where my family goes on walks, where my neighbors go outside and play all the time, and just have people going in and out of multiple houses up and down the street. Like I said, that's my personal thought. I would definitely be interested in hearing other people's thoughts before there was any official decision to be made there. Yeah.
My personal opinion, I don't like it either. I don't feel safe with, we did have Airbnbs all around me, and they got sold and, renovated and sold. But yeah, I did not, I felt unsafe. I didn't like my kids going outside. It's just not a good thing in a little neighborhood. Again, we can't tell our homeowners what to do, but I personally don't like it either.
This was a topic that came into focus a few years ago. There was some, city council discussion on it. I think we had a number of Airbnbs operating in the city unpermitted and, not in compliance with the city code at that point in time. There was kind of a gap where in certain areas a hotel were allowed, but I'm paraphrasing a little bit here, which is probably dangerous, but I've already started going down this path. But also, with the zoning requirements, nothing specifically allowing you to run that type of business in residential areas either. So, going back, we revisited it. I was outspoken against the Airbnbs. We've talked about housing is challenging to find in North Kansas City. There's already a very small amount of houses and, properties available for owner occupied. So I don't like the idea of taking those off the market from people that would want to be a long-term resident and part of our community to rent them out or, short-term for a weekend at a time. I don't think that benefits North Kansas City as a whole.
How should the local government determine the location and number of voting sites?
I suppose I don't know the intricacies of the rules and ordinances of what that looks like. I think it's very important for voting to be accessible for everyone. So within the constraints of the law, making it as accessible as possible for every person in the community. I don't think that it should be a question of work hours allowing you to vote. I think extending the hours, just making it possible for everyone to make their voices heard.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure, that was how should the local government determine the location and number of voting sites?
I have no idea. But if it's important to you guys to know that answer, I will gladly look into it for you. But right now I have no idea how they work that.
I'm unfamiliar with this topic too. My understanding is the Clay County Election Board is involved with a lot of this. I haven't heard discussions at the city level on setting polling locations, but if that's something we can be involved in, I wouldn't be opposed to learning more.
Yeah, same answer. I think this is more of a county-based opportunity, not so much the city.
During your time in office, what would you take to improve the water conditions? Like, what actions would you take to improve the water conditions within Kansas City, if you could?
And specifically, if you do believe there are issues with water conditions in North Kansas City now, or if you believe there will be issues in the future.
Take it. I'm up again. Okay. Yeah. I'm not aware of current issues with our drinking water. I know, there's testing the federal government does at our well sites that we have to report to and remain in compliance. As far as I know, we've been in compliance with all that. I drink the water here, so I hope hope all is good. I mentioned infrastructure before. We do have a study ongoing to get a better idea of what is in the ground for water supply lines. A lot of those are old. I know, over the summer, the city was out, Public Works was out, drilling holes in the streets. You may have seen that they're looking for lead in the pipes as a federal requirement. I'm pretty sure they did not find any lead, last I heard. And so, and then, we will have ongoing costs. Our infrastructure for supplying the water is getting dated. The city's been here since 1912. Not all of it goes back that far, but I wouldn't be surprised if there are a few stretches that are approaching that age. So we're going to have significant infrastructure costs for, keeping that up to date, not leaking and that type of thing. So that'll be something we'll have to plan for.
In Anthony Sands, we do believe. My understanding is our water supply is great. It's a little basic, as opposed to acidic, but a bit basic. Short of that, to my knowledge, we are in full compliance with any water standards there is. We are going to need to talk about water, the exit water, not the intake water, I believe, in our next period of time. That will be really critical. It is going to be something that's going to be on the task of the council for the next 2 years, how we handle that and how we handle the appropriate costs in order to do that. That will be the name of the game for a while.
I'm by no means an expert on the water supply. I'm grateful that there are experts and that we all get to have water. I am aware that there's a lot of federal, state regulations when it comes to the health and the kind of chemicals and everything that goes into a water supply. As far as I know, North Kansas City is compliant with all of those regulations. And I appreciate that. That's kind of all I know.
Well, I didn't know we had bad drinking water. So, and I'm no expert on that either. I'm glad we do have experts to figure that out. Yeah, I don't know.
So we're about out of time at this point. However, if there is any final statement you would like to make to voters briefly before we finish off, feel free to do that now.
So, first thing, I think everybody should be really appreciative of the North Kansas City debate team for bringing their best and brightest to host this. Thank you very much for your time on coming out on an evening. It's important, and it is a benefit to our community that you're doing it. So once again, thank you. North Kansas City is one of the best things, and the things that I appreciate the most is just how small we are, in the fact that many of the residents, it's very easy to get to know your local representative of your ward, reach out. Even if we disagree with you, we pretty much all will have a conversation with you. So that goes for me too. If you disagree with the things I say or would like to add your input, I would welcome that. I am open to changing my mind. I frequently do change my mind. Just ask my wife. So with more information, we are able to make better decisions and better represent our constituents, which is each of our representative wards. That being said, I have never found any representative of North Kansas City to only view themselves as a representative solely for their ward. We really do listen to all the other wards. So if you have something you'd like to bring up, feel free to reach out to all of the representatives up here on council. I think we'll all hear you out.
Thank y'all for being here. Something that I've kept thinking about, and there's no way that I have a solution to this, but I just want to say I'm very sorry that y'all don't feel safe at school, and apologize on behalf of all of the generations that have, obviously failed you. Up here, I don't know necessarily how we can solve that problem or even help. If there's any tiny way we can improve that, I would love to. So I've just been thinking about that. But I see a ton of people out here that I see literally multiple times a week. So I just want to say to Ward 1, I'm out walking all the time. Come find me. I'd love to talk to you, hear your concerns, hear your thoughts, or just chat about life. That's fine too. So yeah, I hope to be in constant communication with everyone, with all my neighbors, and I'm excited to get to know them more and to get to know all of you guys more.
Thank you, Christian. Yes, thank you, girls, for being here. I love my city. I love my neighbors. I don't want to see a whole lot more changes. But I'm willing to listen to you guys or anybody, not necessarily Ward 4. I have great supporters here from other wards that have felt comfortable talking to me. So if you know anybody that, wants to chat, hold a hard discussion, I can do that too. Just come out and vote and, reach out to me if you want me to come out to your house or whatever. I'm just open to whatever.
North Kansas City is a great place to live. I want to do my small part to help that continue. I'm always open to feedback and want to hear more. So don't hesitate to reach out if anything I can help with, or if you want to tell me I'm wrong or whatever it is. I'm happy to hear it. Again, thank you to everyone that came out tonight. Thank you to the debate team here and the city staff too. I appreciate all of you taking the time to help facilitate this and put this on.
Let's give a big round to the NKC debate team. That will conclude the council member component of the forum. We're going to kind of break for a bit, do a little restaging, and we'll be back for the mayoral forum at 7:15. We do appreciate all the candidates spending your evenings with us. Thank you.
go.
1 minute warning, 1 minute warning.
It's an odd angle. Yeah, for YouTube. Yeah.
Welcome back. So we are now going to do the Mayoral Candidate Forum. And again, we are facilitated by Robin Love and Simon Johnson. We have received several questions that were sent in before the forum, as well as several handwritten cards. Those cards, all of the questions have been given to the North Kansas City debate team. And if you have additional questions that you would like for us to try to fit in, there are some cards on that back table for those who are physically here. We will be giving all of the questions that we have received to all of the candidates after the forum, and we encourage them to address them via their personal communication channels. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to our experts, the North Kansas City debate team.
Is everyone ready?
There we go. Good evening.
Okay. What is your stance on allowing homeowners to make their residence an Airbnb? Again, a forum question.
What's the format here? Who's?
My apologies. We're going to go round robin. So since there's only two candidates, you guys will hand off who will begin and end the questions.
Who's up first? Oh, okay. On short-term rentals? Yeah, one more time. I think I got it, but
What is your stance on allowing homeowners to make their residence an Airbnb?
no, I was against them. Some of it depends on the zone, especially single-family zones. It becomes a problem on a lot of fronts. I think one's housing affordability. It's the thing we talk about a lot. We want more homeowners in the neighborhood. Allowing investors to snatch up and run businesses in the middle of neighborhoods as short-term rentals is not a positive thing for the neighborhood. I know many neighbors don't want hotels basically next to their house. People rotating in and day out with little enforcement there as well. So overall, against, I think there's a lot of just negative impacts on the neighborhoods and communities to Airbnbs. So overall, I think we've passed the policy. I think puts us in a good place. We can always look at it potentially doing more. But, I think so far we've taken some appropriate steps to try to mitigate that. Yeah.
So the Airbnb short-term rental issue is something that the council and the planning commission have already looked through and addressed. We landed on if an Airbnb is going to operate in North Kansas City, it has to be in a multifamily zone, duplex, triplex, quadplex, or in a primary residence of a single family. So if it's your primary residence, you go on vacation, you could rent the home out. Pursuant to a business license, you got to pay for a business license. You have to have a rigorous inspection, which is over and above a normal rental inspection. And then it's taxed at the same level a hotel would be so that it's equal competition for hotels. I went through the process after we approved it. I own a duplex, so I wanted to see what that looked like from the inside. And I applied. I got my business license. I went through the inspection process. And it is rigorous. The inspector comes in, they check all sorts of things. You have to have exit plans. You have to have a fire extinguisher that's double the size of the normal one. You have to have interconnected smoke detectors. And it's a very, very rigorous process. But it can only be done in the duplex, triplex, quadplexes, or in primary residence that is a single family. And that's settled. We voted on that. And now we need to make sure that's being enforced. So at the time, we're 15 operating short-term rentals, Airbnbs, whatever you want to call them. I look around. I've pulled Airbnb's website a couple of times. If you look for shorter than 30 days, is how our code names a short-term rental. If you sort by under 30 days, there are still a handful that are operating, and I'm not certain that those are fitting with the rules. So now that we've passed it, it's been August of 23 that we passed this. I want to make sure that anyone still operating is following the rules.
So staying on the topic of property ownership, what will you do to further the city's stated goal of encouraging and increasing individual home ownership?
That one's me.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all
Start
right.
this one.
So home ownership. So the master plan calls for increased home ownership. There's a lot in play here. There are a lot of market dynamics in play with home ownership, especially with single-family homes. So when we put out a parcel, I'll take 23rd and Swift, for example, when we put that out for bid, as far as I was told, nothing came in to build single-family residences. Then people talk about condominiums, okay? So condominiums are a way you can build up and out, more density in an ownership structure. And while that sounds nice, I work as a realtor, and condos are having a lot of trouble right now because of things like insurance going through the roof. Condo associations have to pass those costs through to the residents. So when people are looking at condos, they're quite nervous about buying a condominium when they don't have any say in where that insurance is picking up and what the cost could balloon to. So you're starting to see condos sit on the market a lot longer than they did before. That means that builders are not proposing to build those things anymore. Some will, but it's harder to get those through. So in the idea of having more home owners, I would explore, and this is going to tie into a later question I believe, is explore opening up some zoning. I'll use the lot right here behind us. There's a church and 2 homes on Fayette. It was going to be a parking lot. The city and the planning commission listened to the residents, said we're not going to do that. So now the school district has put a public vote forward to put that up for sale. So if they do sell it, somebody's going to buy it, and somebody's going to want to do something with that. As it sits now, they could tear down that church, and it's a single lot, zoned single family. If they're going to go with our current zoning, they could build 1 house there. They could put a single house on that, and that will put 1 homeowner potential in North Kansas City. They could also take the other 2 lots, tear those houses down or refurbish them if they can. But what I would like to see is opening up the zoning to allow for multiple units on a lot like that church lot, so that you could have, similar to Northgate Village, row homes built where individuals could own those, but instead of 1, we get 4. And we could mirror other cities like Minneapolis, who have opened up single-family zoning to up to 3. So they go from R1 to R3. They've done the experiment. They're getting what I've heard is great returns on this, and they're seeing more home ownership. Prices are starting to soften because you're building more on the same footprint. Along that, I would look to be working with the Home Builders Association to look at what red tape we have to home building, because there's a lot of things you have to get through with approvals, a lot of red tape, a lot of extra cost to build. Taking some of that out, making it easier to get a home built, also enforcing the codes we have, but not making a bunch of unnecessary red tape so more homes get built, more people can own them.
There we go. So to increase home ownership, I think you farther, as Councilmember Smith noted earlier, you start enforcing the short-term rental properties. Hopefully you start to get some investors sell out of their properties. The avenues continue to be run over by investors. So it'd be good to see more of those turned over into single-family homes again. We have actually done some home ownership now. Bloom NKC is going to have home ownership as well. So that's the project along Burlington there. So we already have a project. And I think that could serve as a template for some other projects in dense areas as well. It would make sense to build some sort of McMansion-type place somewhere, anywhere here in North Kansas City. We're landlocked. We're just too dense for that sort of development. So you do have to be smart about it. But there is some incremental things I think you can do that don't fully ruin the character of a single-family neighborhood. There is these transition zones that you can have, and some of those could include townhomes, duplexes, this sort of thing. So that's another one. And there's some properties the city owns that we could even look to doing something like that. So you take around 32nd Avenue in that Cherry Street area. That's one the city could look at expanding Northgate Village even farther north and kind of take that template, which has been a very successful template for the city, and expand that farther north. And that could create some new homeownership as well.
Outside of that, it's really being proactive on the things that we're doing, being intentional on them, and working with developers, finding people that want to build these things, because it can be a challenge. As he noted, condos is, it comes up a lot in conversation with developers and development lawyers. They struggle with condos. Many condo complexes have failed, so that's not always the solution, but there are other smaller type projects we could do. I think that would increase home ownership.
More of a personal question about property ownership that came up a couple of times. How many properties do you own in North Kansas City, and where in NKC are they located?
I start this 2316 Fayette, and that's my only property.
So I own 9 properties in North Kansas City. I have 2 in Northgate Village, 2 duplexes, and a handful, I guess 3 single family. So I guess 9 units total. Single family residences in the avenues. So 1 on 21st, 2 on 23rd. I'm sorry, 2 on 21st, 2 on 23rd. And I buy them for investment purposes and also to make the neighborhood nicer. It's a process. If you go into some of these houses, I'll give an example. The most recent one I purchased after helping the 85-year-old lady move out. I helped move all the stuff out, opened up walls, found wire splices that were extremely dangerous, cut out subfloor, found termite damage and rot. She was living in a home that was very, very unsafe. And through the process, this house will be back on the market. It will be very nice to live in, and it's going to be done the right way through all the inspections, every bit of it.
Sorry, another forum question. How do the candidates for mayor feel about the possibility of purchasing the hillside above Mackin Park in an effort to prevent development that is being done between Cherry Street and Holmes Street?
Cherry and Holmes is already being developed. So it's been bought. It's owned by North Point Development. They are building, I don't know the final number of apartments, but we did proactively jump in because that's a major threat to North Kansas City as water runs down a clear-cut hill. We got involved with the levee district. We worked with the Army Corps of Engineers to make sure that when that came before the Kansas City, Missouri Planning Commission, they had a lot of conditions that they were going to overlay. And I think it was 43 or 46 conditions for water retention that were overlaid on a project that we have no authority over, but we were able to push for that and to advocate for that so that when that water comes running down the hill, it should be theoretically better than it was with all the trees because now all the water retention and diversion is being put in place. The question was Cherry and Holmes, but if we're going east over top of Mackin Park on the bluff, sure, we can explore it. We can look at it. It's still privately owned by a private entity, and if they want to sell it, great, we can explore that. I would support it.
There we go. That has been explored some and still definitely on the radar. You also have to have a willing seller on these properties as well. And so that could be the challenge there, it's just having the willing seller. So we're clarifying the area. Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, that's, if the city's interested, we could pursue, and I know we've lightly looked at it before, but never gotten too deep into that conversation. But would be open to doing that.
Can you describe how your campaigns are being funded and where these contributions are coming from?
Oh, it's a variety of sources so far. It's a lot of people I've met in my last 8 years of doing this now. You spend a lot of time building relationships, and through those relationships, that's where most of the dollars have come from so far. Is a variety of people I've either met from town or people that have business in town or conduct business in town. It's a variety of all the above, and as well as the firefighters union as well.
So campaign finance is a very important and often overlooked piece of this whole process. You have to earn and raise some sort of funding to run a campaign, to send mailers and print flyers and signs and all of that good stuff. My campaign has been funded in a very much locally run grassroots way. My support total, I have 14 North Kansas City residents or business owners, my mom, and my daughter's kindergarten teacher has thrown $20 in the hat. If you are curious, mec.gov has a way you can search for campaign finance disclosures. I would encourage you, dig in, take a look, and see what's on each of ours. You'll see that mine's mostly funded internally here in North Kansas City. Again, other than my mom, which she's watching. Thanks, Mom. And then where the money's being spent. I am almost frugal to a fault where for example, to do some of the design work on my campaign, I've gotten a 30-day trial to Canva to do my design work, and once that's done, it'll expire, and no money spent. So I'm just trying to find the ways to be fiscally responsible even during a campaign.
Cool. So looking at the budget and salary that you're going to have as mayor, in 2023, City Council chose to increase the mayor's salary from $600 to $1,100 per month. This increase will come into effect in April of 2025. How do you justify this increase?
That one me first. Okay, so I asked for the increase, actually. I was the one that put it on the ballot, and I would love to elaborate on that. So during my time on the city council, I've had a number of conversations with other council people. It is something that's been asked for, but it hasn't really been looked at since, I want to say, the late 80s was the last time the pay got bumped up. And so I said, well, we do a study for staff compensation. We do it every couple of years, and it would be great to just take a quick look, embed a page on there to say, what do other neighboring governing bodies make? What do cities across the country with a similar budget size to ours, what do they make, and what would you recommend as a range for the council and the mayor? And so they did. They put forth a range, and I recommended an increase that would only be effective for the next administration. We can't vote on our own pay increase. So it would be effective further out from when we voted, and it was the mid-range. I wanted to go to $6,000 a year for council members, up from $3,600, and from, I want to make sure I'm saying this right, but like $8,000 a year for the mayor to $11,000. Not a drastic increase. And the council at the time voted not to raise council pay. Many of whom were new to the position, didn't feel comfortable. Folks came and spoke against it. This was a time when water bills had just gone up due to a thing we put in place years prior. But the timing was pretty bad. And so the council voted against that, but did vote to raise the mayor's pay. And I'm not sure where that went after. That's up to the mayor to sign, whether it would actually take place. And so I never followed up after that happened. But I think there's an underlying argument to be made that while not about the money, like these positions we're not in it to get wealthy, right? If you're making $3,600 or $6,000, it's not going to make you wealthy. We're in it because we love the city. And I do think there is an amount of value, though, that should be placed on these sorts of positions. The work involved, the dedication to a broad range of topics. As you've seen, these questions cover all sorts of things. So we can't just be up here guessing. So we need to study. We need to be in this. And to attract people, not in it for the money, but to value the positions, I think is very important. So that's why we advocated for it. I don't know where the mayor's pay increase ended up.
Well, council would know where it was, because if I don't sign it, then it's either vetoed, and well, it would have been vetoed, then it would have come back to council. So anything that doesn't come back is generally just passed. This job's been a personal financial sacrifice to me, really. To me, it's about giving back to the community. I'd actually support lowering the mayor's pay after the election again. Again, it's not about pay. It's not about title to me. The mayor of Springfield, Missouri does it, makes $0 last time I looked. Not important to me. It's just not my focus. It's not what I care about in this front. It's about giving back to the community, supporting the community, and always being active in the community. My per hour is probably is negative, and that's fine. I'm running again. I would do it again for the same pay that it was before. I would do it for less. So I was against the pay raises. But I did sign it. There we go.
What, if anything, would you change about zoning within the city, and why?
This is my turn, isn't it? Yep. I feel like I need one of those possession arrows here. Phil is a good March Madness.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw out there. We got a couple games going on now. I haven't seen too many score checkers out here, so must not be many Missouris. Oh, there, now Zach's doing it. I'm talking and thinking. That's a tough one. It's just making sure you're correctly zoned now. again, it kind of talking about the transitional pieces we were talking about earlier on the various housing aspects. It's just making sure you have the right zones in the right places, but zoning is also not something that's easy to change or you change overnight, especially like omnibus type zoning changes council went through many years ago. I think when Councilmember Stewart was on the council, we changed a lot of our zoning type stuff. It's a really long process. I don't have any particular zoning piece that I can think of off the top of my head that I'm saying, we need to change today. There's various other regulations around development and building I think we need to tackle. But as you're looking at the zone itself and the zoning, we overhauled our code. It had to be 4 or 5 years ago now. So I'm not sure we need a significant overhaul at the moment.
So Mayor DeLong and I were both on the council when we overhauled that code. I was relatively new. It was like drinking from a fire hose because a lot of it came over and I didn't know what was going on. It's tough when you're learning on the fly, but I feel much more comfortable now with what goes on in a zoning code. I think we've got some things that can be addressed, especially as we're looking at home ownership and that goal, potentially opening up zoning within some of the single-family areas to allow for a little bit more density. I call it mindful density. Maybe we start it as a one-off approval if somebody wants to apply for a variance and we see how the first one goes. If it's disruptive, we don't keep going with it. But if it's not, and we can also look at other cities, like I say, Minneapolis does it. I like to look at other things like setback requirements off sides of lots, making sure to keep life safety in mind and working with the zoning professionals who know what they're doing. That's a big piece. I'd also like to, and this is similar to that vein of home ownership, a point that I missed on in the last one is the vacant houses we have in town. There's a lot of vacant houses. Everyone can probably point to one as they walk around the city, and I want to find a solution for that. Right? I want to find a way that we don't let these houses continue to just erode before our eyes while our neighbors are looking for a place to live. It's frustrating and a way, I don't know what tools we have. Some of that's set by state law, but looking for ways to make fines, really enforce codes, making sure that it is a burden to have a vacant house in North Kansas City so that those are turned back over to people who want them to live in.
So another question on zoning, specifically looking at Airbnbs. The writer says, I would like to know how the mayor candidates feel on changing the city zoning to allow unrestricted Airbnbs in residential neighborhoods now zoned for single family.
Unrestricted Airbnbs in single family zone? No, we've restricted them. I went through all the restrictions we have on them. That's a non-starter. Again, we need to enforce what we have on the books. That's a big thing. And to put the scale of the problem in perspective, we have a few hundred homes in North Kansas City. We had, at the time when it was at its peak, we had 15 operating Airbnb units. So it's not this grand scale of a huge problem that it has sounded like. It's one of those that you hear a whisper about and you're like, man, it feels like there's one on every block. We checked the records. We pulled the maps. It was 15 operating. And I don't support unrestricted Airbnbs in single family.
There you go. No, I'd agree. We have passed the policy. It doesn't mean it can't be brought up again, though, and that attempts won't happen. And I would not support doing that again. I think it has worked. We might have had 15. Now you're down to a few. So that it is reducing. The policy, I think, is working and would continue to, fight for the policy that we have now and enforce it.
Okay, moving over to public schools specifically, in March of 2024, there was a shooting at North Kansas City High School. Thankfully, nobody was killed, but 2 people were injured. What will you and or can you do about safety in our public schools?
This one's mine, isn't it? Public schools. So I kind of heard something similar about safety in public schools earlier, some of that being the school board, but ultimately we are the law enforcement agency in town. So we do have a strong say in that. It's ramping up the SRO programs, which we already have now. How does the school continue to partner with the city? We just can't abdicate everything all the time and say it's everyone else's responsibility. Yeah, the school board's in charge of some of your day-to-day safety protocols, but we are the law enforcement agency in town. So it would be continuing to build just very strong relationships between, I think, our law enforcement community. Because they do a lot of good programs, have a lot of great people. It can maybe help mitigate some of this stuff as well. Obviously, gun violence is a huge part of that. That's a problem. And so that's a much larger problem that's hard to address just in this question in 2 minutes. But That's really strengthening our partnership with law enforcement. I know Clay County has a strong partnership with the school district as well, but continue to expand some of that. And again, it's proactive stuff. It's before as well. So not just that day in the response, but it's how do you de-escalate those sort of things? How do you make sure these things aren't happening from the beginning? And you need a strong law enforcement partner to help do that.
So you asked specifically about the shooting, and I want to talk to that immediately. That was horrific. My wife and I were at the chief celebration when the shots went off as well, and then a few days later, we're sitting eating dinner at home, and we hear over 50 rounds fired. We're sitting in our kitchen eating, and I am livid about this. I took to the dais at the very next council meeting and went off. It got shared a handful of times. I am sick of our state sitting on its hands and doing nothing and saying we've done nothing and we're all out of ideas, right? There are solutions to this. So in the absence of the state being willing to literally do anything except give more and more and more permissions to young people to carry guns in a concealed manner, we have to do something locally, right? And what is that? Well, there's preemption laws, so we can't pass laws to stop the young people from carrying guns wherever they seem to want. Now, schools are no-gun zones as long as that's being enforced. But I am just very, very upset at how this has gone. So I hosted town hall meetings. I brought in Moms Demand Action, had our chief of police come to some of those to speak to some community questions and concerns. There are lots of ways we can do things locally to move that needle incrementally. These seem like senseless acts of violence. How do we get ahead of all of them is a very big question. But we can start with mental health resources. We can start with third spaces for young people. We've got the Best Buy Teen Tech Center. So instead of being out arguing and then potentially getting into fights and pulling a gun, you can go and make a mixtape at the Best Buy Teen Tech Center. You can go and learn life skills. And I want to lean into those kinds of things. I also want to have people out and about on the roads, on the streets, walking around. Sunlight is a good sanitizer for this kind of thing. It's much harder to pull a gun when there's a big group of people around seeing what's happening. So it's a very hard issue to tackle. And then on the topic of schools and the topic of being safe at the schools, this is a little bit of a tangent comparatively, but North Kansas City is one of the most diverse schools in the state of Missouri, possibly in the whole country, and we value that here. And there's a discussion ongoing right now in Idaho, I believe it is, and at the national level to remove signs that tell people they're welcome in schools. That makes people feel unsafe, right? Signs that just say, all are welcome here. They're like, you got to take that down. That will never fly in North Kansas City. As long as I'm here, everyone is welcome. And I mean that. That's in our schools, that's in our institutions, that's in our city.
Kind of piggyback off of that, do you think immigrations and customs enforcement should be allowed to engage in enforcement activities within our schools?
Do I think they should? No. Do I think we have the authority to stop them? I don't think we do. Would I love to get in front personally and stop ICE enforcement from going into a school where a student's simply trying to learn math? Yeah, I would love to do that. What would the net effect be, right? We can speak out about it. We can protest it. We can be disgusted by what's happening. The federal and state levels are going to do things that are very confusing, very concerning. And the way I tell people, the way I'm staying sane in this crazy environment where every day we find a new thing to be blown away by, is to focus on what can we do in this 4.5 square miles. How can we make North Kansas City a place where people are welcome, where people feel protected? We have school resource officers that are of the highest integrity. We allocate those to the schools, and I would hope that they would take the stance against injustice. But yeah, it is a very, very multi-level issue. But I would love to jump right in front of all that.
No, they shouldn't be in the schools. I mean, that's to me pretty simple. You continue to see the federal government, even picking on schools now who are trying to even advise people on what to do if they have these sort of interactions. And no, we're not about that's And it's almost kind of hard to comprehend. It's all coming so fast and furious every single day and ever changing. But no, we shouldn't have those type of interactions in our schools.
All right, and then for one final question on public schools, will you and can you further enforcement against the spread of illicit substances within our schools?
We'll do whatever we can to support the schools. Obviously, what you're seeing going on in fentanyl is a complete crisis across all age groups, even getting down into high schools. It's tragic. It's horrible to see what the effect drugs are having on people and just the deaths involved. It's out of control. So again, to me, it goes back to some law enforcement partners and trying to stop the drugs before they get there as well. But I think we've had, again, good partnerships with Clay County, good partnerships with North Kansas City. And if people are seeing things, I encourage people to report things as well. These things are bad and they are killing people. And it's sad to see that happen in our community, any community. It's horrible to see. So no, yes, I would help and support. I don't know, no drugs. Yeah. There, I don't know.
Yeah, we grew up in the Say No to Drugs era, the DARE program. I'm assuming you're speaking on fentanyl. Is that what or are there other substances that other stuff? Okay. I'm not, I know fentanyl.
Fentanyl is a part of it, but we're looking just as a whole, like it is like an increasing issue. Now we even see like the spread of nicotine, the spread of other substances, even if they're not necessarily like
hard drugs,
deadly or hard drugs, it's still an issue. So we're just wondering, as a whole, what will you do about that issue, if anything?
Sure. As the mayor mentioned, we are the law enforcement arm of this, but the school district does set the rules, the protocols, and those need to be enforced. So if you're seeing them, if you or your fellow students are seeing them not be enforced, or the teachers, I want them to feel empowered to reach out. If they want to reach directly out to City Hall, and we can have a dialogue that might have a little more weight with the school district. I know they don't want this going on either, right? So if it's happening, it's probably happening in the shadows. So bring it into the light, let's address it. The school resource officers are there, and we can allocate resources. If the schools are in North Kansas City, we can send folks that way. But yeah, it's going to start with a partnership between the school district and the city.
Moving away from public schools, this is a question from somebody in our audience. Will you support public transportation, specifically in regards to bus service?
How long do we have on this one? Anybody who's been watching city council meetings over the last, decade, we've been in an ongoing struggle with the Kansas City Area Transit Authority, or the KCATA. I understand why they exist. They are set up to help facilitate transit across a bi-state area, which is difficult because you have to take in state dollars from both sides. You got to take in federal dollars, which hopefully will continue to exist. And then you have to weigh the political agendas of various municipalities in the mix. A large part of the KCATA board is comprised of Kansas City, and so they are the major player in that space. And we have had ongoing struggles with their opacity. We've asked for transparency and not gotten it. Our contract dictates that we can ask for their financial statements. We can ask for audits of their financial statements, which I have demanded multiple times from this exact seat and not gotten them. But the issue remains they're the only game in town right now. So if you want to run buses anywhere outside of the boundaries of North Kansas City, like we can get you from one side of North Kansas City to the other, but if like Mr. Clevenger here, you need to get downtown for your job, you're out of luck unless we work with the Kansas City Area Transit Authority. And so they approached us a year and a half ago now, I guess, and said, we're gonna be more than doubling your price to run the routes on our fixed route and flex service buses. They went from somewhere in the low 600s to 2.2 million. We said, absolutely not. That will bankrupt us. We did the studies. We looked internally. That'll bankrupt us. They said, okay, what about 1.1 million? Still too much, to be honest. And so we went back and forth. We put out a request for proposal from multiple groups. I sat on the transit committee. We looked at flex services. We looked at things that are like Iris or Uber. We checked all sorts of things. And we ended up back with the KCATA because, again, if you want to move about the metro and not just be confined to taking a ride to the edge of North Kansas City to hop on a bus, we need to work with them. They've recently worked with Kansas City now, and they are funding to keep most of their routes intact. That was as of yesterday, I want to say, and they're approving that budget as we speak, theoretically. So they're going to keep running the routes. It's just what are they going to start demanding we pay again? Each time it comes up, it's just a number. It seems to be pulled from the sky, and I ask for justification, and they don't give it. I see nods from our fellow council members. It's very frustrating. But yes, we will support the bus service. We're going to get people from A to B. We brought back the flex service because it was very popular and in high demand. And we're going to go beyond that. We're going to work on bike infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure. We'll make sure this place is the easiest place to get around if you don't have a car.
Yes, over my time, I've always supported both fixed route transit and flex bus transit, and I'll continue to support that. We have the money to do it in a transit fund. The voters passed a sales tax many years ago to fund fixed route transit, to fund taxi cabs for seniors, and that's what we should follow through on our commitment to the public that voted on the tax at that time, and continue to fund those things. This is personal to folks. This is getting to the grocery store. This is getting to the hospital. This is getting to their job. This is personal to folks. This is important. We need to keep people moving. It's economic development on top of this. You know, places want to be located where there is strong public transportation. So yes, I've always supported, always will. You know, I know there's some back and forth over what their cost has been over time. Generally, and I saw an article about this in KCUR the other day, they're pretty well in line, the KCAT is, on their expenditures related to other bus systems of cities of the same size, basically, with similar MSAs. So that's, continue to support that. Matter of fact, I'm not going to, maybe I will. Sometimes it seems like they might still be charging too low for what it actually costs for some of the cities. But we like our rate lower, so I don't want to oversell that point. But yes, they're very much in line with many other transit agencies as well. I look at it about every time the contract comes up, and you know, it has gone up. Things have gotten more expensive. Transit's gotten more expensive. Labor's gotten more expensive. Wheels have gotten more expensive. Oil's gotten more expensive. Gas has gotten more expensive. But it's a vital service to the community, and so yes, I'll continue to support funding that.
Homelessness in North Kansas City is a really prevalent issue. What, as the mayor, are you going to try and do to help, solve this issue?
So far, I mean, it's a very complex issue. I heard some of the answers earlier. We try to do what we can at times, and one of them was filling the gap on our cold weather program. We were concerned about our unhoused individuals on the street. When it dropped really, really low, the goal was to have no one die in the streets. And so we started to work with Northland Assistance Center to make sure they had funding they needed to put people up in the hotels on those brutal nights to make sure no one dies here. But going forward, one of the big strategies for tackling some of this really is more housing and wraparound services. You got to have the two. And this has worked in Europe and several places, works a lot of different places. First, get people out of the circumstance, get them off the street, get them into housing in some sort of way. And again, services with it. Easier said than done. That sounds easy, but how do we achieve that? It has to be a confluence of everybody. It has to be, the county has to be involved. Our neighboring cities have to be involved. You're going to have private sector. You're going to have nonprofits. You need to get everyone at the table and really say, okay, how do we do this? Where can we do this? Because we've seen projects be kicked up in Johnson County, and then the residents say, no, we don't want this in our neighborhood, and then it doesn't go any farther. That's kind of the end of it. So I think another aspect of that is also to add the community into all that, to have those conversations. So it's a multifaceted thing. It's not a thing we can solve just on our own, but it was very shocking to also hear that there's really no housing north of the river. So we've been heavily dependent on Jackson County and Kansas City and nonprofits down there to fund things for years. So where that is, how that works, I don't know, but it'd be great to see more services here in the Northland. And then I'll stop there.
All right, cool. So a written in form question. What?
I was going to say.
Oh, my apologies.
You're good.
I'm so
You're
sorry.
rolling.
You go right
Hey,
ahead.
You are rolling. I mean, I don't have a fix for homelessness, so we can move along. But no, it's this is a really, really very complex issue. It's not something that we're going to have a silver bullet for, but we've talked with our Equity and Inclusion Committee. This is something that they are looking into as a group that's bound to include and find equitable solutions for all users and residents of North Kansas City. They're looking at it. We do, as the mayor mentioned, allocate funds in the coldest of the cold to the Northland Assistance Center to stop gap for the coldest nights, but we need a durable solution. If we keep funding this, it's just money going in and that's it. We put people up in a hotel for a little while and they're back out on the street. So it's going to take partnerships across nonprofit, government, county, all different levels. Organizations like the Northland Assistance Center, Hillcrest, Turning Point, Save Incorporated, the YMCA, all of them offer different facets of this service. And it's not something that that the city is going to solve. It's going to be us bringing that coalition together and finding people who are better at this than we are, right? I am not somebody who knows the intricacies of mental health, of personal hygiene assistance, of substance abuse treatments, training for job skills, transitional housing and wraparound service. All of this is really, really important, but that's not our expertise as a city, and we don't have the funding mechanism for that, but we can support and point people toward organizations that do.
So a written in form question, what effort will you make to get a grocery store in North Kansas City?
This one's
We can add 3 more minutes.
Yeah. This one's me, right? Good. 6 years ago when I joined the council, this was our number one goal, it seemed. And if you look out, we're still in the same spot. Without saying too much, because there's litigation involved, there was a grocery store final agreement to have a grocery store funded and the end of year end 2022 and operating year end 2023 in the One North development next to Mariotto Jewelers. Has anybody shopped at that store recently? No. We've done multiple rounds of community engagement. We've put dots on boards. We've done all the things. We've had multiple different interested developers for that grocery store, and yet it's still a grass lot. So we are wrapping up, I hope, some litigation, and I hope that development agreement that binds our hands for grocery store developments will allow us to pursue other options. We cannot fund or incentivize any other site than what is there at the current time. And so if and when this litigation is wrapped up, I think you'll see a blitz of motion. I think there's interest for this. There's a lot of citizens that I see fingers crossed, let's go. Something we can walk to, right? Like, this is a tough spot. We got Aldi up the road. We got Red X. We want one of our own. And no knock to save a lot. You can get down there. You can get some meat, but the produce, a little work. Grocery stores are also, as I have learned, because I came in and was like, let's just vote for a Trader Joe's and we'll be good. Turns out it doesn't work that way. So they're very complicated. You have to drop pins and do circles and find population centers, which is why you see the apartments over there that were inextricably tied to the building of the grocery store. You have to have produce wholesalers on board. If they don't want the grocery store there, it's very difficult to make that happen. There's a lot of things in play, and anyone who has been through this process and who sat through the discussions understand that it's very nuanced, but we would love to see it, and we're going to do everything we can once those hands are unbound to make it happen.
I believe the good news is there's a lot of people that want to develop a grocery store in North Kansas City. They just didn't want to do it under the former arrangement. I'm trying to dance around that we're currently in litigation over and hopefully out of shortly. But I'm hoping that those people are still very interested once this becomes free and clear. Due litigation, you can't get too deep into it. But yes, there were a lot of problems along the way, and we're hoping that those clear up very quickly and that those people are interested, that have been expressing interest, are still interested. And at that point, I'd like to see us evaluate a couple different options. We might be locked into that area with the $5.2 million we have in escrow. We might not. It depends on, I think we need some more lawyers to evaluate it again. But the goal, if we can unlock it, would be to probably RFP citywide and see where, developers think the best place to develop is. Could be tricky. If not, then go back to the drawing board in the One North area where the project was already supposed to be. And that'd be kind of the top two options there. But we got to get out of the litigation. We're almost there. Very close.
Another written in form question. Would you support inclusionary zoning in North Kansas City?
been a while since I've deep dived into inclusionary zoning.
There's some more information on the slip if you would like us to read that out
Might as
loud.
well
We
read the whole
can.
thing here. Maybe you spark my mind here a little bit more.
Okay, cool. All right. It says these measures would require developers to designate a set percentage of new rented units in high or medium density zoned areas as affordable.
There we go. That's the spark I needed. Yeah, you've seen some of that in Colorado and various other states. It has been effective in some areas. I'm not even sure if we can do that in Missouri. I'd have to check. We often get preempted from doing anything that sounds reasonable and fun and can actually help people. The state's very good at restricting those things. But if we could do that, yeah, I would support evaluating that option because we need more affordable housing. The housing prices aren't going down anytime soon. We have developed, or we worked in partnership with a developer to do the gallery lofts, which had some programmatic affordable housing. But the market continues to change as well. You need about 20 minutes for this one. At one point, they took away the low-income housing tax credit, which made it harder to develop affordable housing in Missouri as well. There's just all kinds of things to affordable housing there. But yeah, I would support evaluating that. I don't have a whole policy in front of me. I always like to see a full policy before I say yes, yes, yes. But yeah, no, looking at it before, that definitely always comes up as a potential solution to really help drive more affordable housing. It's just been a while since I looked at it.
So using zoning as a tool for this sort of thing is a bit of a blunt force instrument. So if we lock a zone down to forcing inclusive zoning for that, if they have to build a certain percentage, what you're going to see is a couple things. You could see the dream, right? A developer shows up who's very benevolent and wants to build a high quality building and bring in a certain percentage of affordable units. That's the dream. What in reality often happens is somebody will bid, it'll be a little less of a percentage, or they'll build a little bit lower quality building. It'll lack some maintenance. It won't have the longevity of a building that's built at full market rate because they know the revenue they're going to get out of it is not going to be the same. So there are other tools that we can use. If we own the ground, right, we can RFP out and say we want a percentage, and then we have to see what bids come in. If we don't own the ground, and the rezoning request comes in, we can tie incentives to that. We can tie a rezoning request to certain pieces of that, subject to, as Mayor DeLong has pointed out, Missouri law. We can't get afoul of state law, which often does restrict us to pretty much anything that would help folks. So it's playing within the bounds, using the tools in our toolkit, but affordable housing is always going to be a moving target. It's always going to be very difficult to pin down because ultimately somebody is paying for the housing to be built. And if we want quality, durable housing, it's going to be finding that exact right developer, the right type of incentive to make it happen.
How, if at all, will you encourage community involvement, specifically youth involvement in North Kansas City?
I like this one. One of the pillars of my campaign is community involvement. I want to see more civic engagement. I want to see people involved and out of their houses. I think something we lost during COVID was a sense of togetherness, of community. People started getting really comfortable being in their homes, watching the screens and arguing with each other over social media instead of being out, sitting on their front porch, talking to their neighbors, gathering for block parties. Goodness, we will give you $400 to section off a piece of your street and throw a party. More people should do this. And so part of my thing is I want to make sure that we're shouting that from the rooftops, that we are sending those funds out the door so that people are in community with each other. I also want to take that a step further and host, still a bit of a half-baked idea, but bring people out quarterly for a community meal where we partner with local restaurants to bring in a limited menu and people could buy that, or work on funding for a meal that people could purchase at a reduced cost or even for free. Bring people together to break bread. It's much easier to argue with a little picture on a Facebook profile than it is to argue with somebody who you're sitting across a plate of spaghetti from, right? So bringing people in for community is huge. I want to also highlight civic engagement. So boards and commissions. Councilman Bailey, who is going to be taking my seat on the council, brought up bringing youth onto boards and commissions. I don't know if that would be in a full voting role or an advisory role, but bringing people into the inside so they're learning from the inside what it's like to be here, and they can talk to their peers and say, hey, there's more to this than you think. bringing them into the Citizens Academy. We have, I'll shine the light on Kim, we have an amazing program that teaches people all about the goings-on of our city, and I would love to see more young people going through that so that they understand the nuances of how Public Works is running the trucks around and that your garbage just doesn't just disappear one day, or what it takes to be ready to fight a fire or pursue crime on a moment's notice. There's so many things that go on behind the scenes. And I also do want to find ways for young people, even down to our youngest citizens. I have 2 daughters who are 3 and 5. I want to make this city welcoming to them. I want to find solutions that they can go to the playground safely from their front door over to the playground without me having to hover over them. I want to make sure that our streets are safe for our youngest folks to ride their bikes, to be out and playing. And I think our community will thrive when we are embracing those opportunities.
I might have to tackle youth involvement first here because I see William and George back here. They've been here for a few hours now, and they've been pretty quiet, pretty good so far. They don't love their public meetings, though, but they have cookies. So the cookies are always a big attractor. No, just involvement at high level in general. For me, it's always being available. It's always trying to expand some of our processes, like we've expanded our budget process to give people more time to digest the process. And some of those things have drawn some more people in. Citizens Academy, which Kim's done so much work on, has been incredible. And so going forward, with especially like a youth council, that could be an option. You could always do a youth council, or as noted, like kind of an advisory role on a board or commission. I go to National League of Cities quite a bit, and I've actually sat on roundtables with some of these groups, and they seem very effective in other cities. These kids really know their issues. They're able to contribute. They're in and amongst the city just as much as everyone else is every day, and so they understand a lot of the issues. They see it on the ground, and so they have a lot of valuable input to give. It's just making sure we find a solid pathway for them to give that. And there's either a solid youth council where you do that separately, or do it as kind of an add-on to a board, a liaison of sorts. There we go. I think there used to be a principals liaison many years ago. I was going through some old documents. There used to be some connections like that. Probably be good to bring something like that as well. I know I talked to Dr. White about it at one point, because I think he has a principals advisory committee as well, or had something to that effect a few years ago, and trying to figure out how we kind of interweave that a little bit more with some of the day-to-day operations of the city.
All right, as our time comes to a close, we'd like to look less at specific issues and give you guys more of a chance to talk to your voters and about what issues you are concerned about. So with that, what specifically are your main concerns that you want to tackle if you're as elected as mayor?
Oh, that's me this time. There we go. Number one, investing in our infrastructure. We saw the water main break that occurred several months, time flies, several months ago. The city can't be crippled by those sort of things, and those things they're creeping up all around us. And so we've already taken proactive steps to start to dive into that. Are in the process of doing master plans for our water distribution, storm sewer, and sanitary sewer. And so the goal is to wrap those up and invest heavily in infrastructure the next several years. I mean, that's going to be the most number one thing that we need to tackle, because you can't have a community without running water, without sewer water leaving. It just doesn't work. So for economic development, for keeping people in town, we're going to tackle those investments. That's going to be huge. We're going to continue to support public safety. In the last term, we passed successful CBAs with both the firefighters and the police. Plan to do the same, continue to invest in services with the fire department and police department. It's one of the benefits of North Kansas City is you call police and fire, they're going to be there in minutes, if not a minute. We have some of the best over there, and we want to continue to support them through that. Neighborhood stability, as we talk about short-term rentals, want to keep pushing on that program, make sure we are enforcing that. That's going to be huge, as well as maybe look at some additional rental inspection programs. We haven't quite found a program, I think, that's been super perfect for us yet, but I want to continue to progress towards that, because there are some living conditions out there that are just not acceptable for North Kansas City, so we want to continue to tackle that. So eventually you'll see more on rental inspections. A minute and a half, I got like 7 more. Now, city service, always basic city services. I got to throw it out. I should have said it 7 times already. That's our core focus on day-to-day is basic city services. Make sure the roads are being plowed. You got to make sure trash is being picked up. So continue on that sort of stuff. Quality of life stuff. We want to better connect to Northland Trails, which we're already working on. We have master plans in place to start to do that, giving folks more recreational opportunities, working on a levee trail project still, and various connectors that are related to mobility. So tackling infrastructure mobility, some of that kind of goes hand in hand there. We signed a new 10-year deal at the YMCA. We signed our new deal with the KC Fiber to maintain the municipal fiber that we have for residents now. And so that'll come up again here in a few years. Tackle that, 49 seconds. Now I'm getting nervous here. Economic growth, continuing economic growth, continue to support small business, ensure North Kansas City remains just really business friendly. Always trying to improve the process every single day. There we go. I don't know, I feel like I could do more, but I could just go on and on. Done a great job of just building relationships over the last several years, whether it be at the school district, the hospital, local EDCs, and economic development chambers. Just building strong relationships, which have positive outcomes for North Kansas City. So I've been focused on that and continue to focus on that. And now I'm just kind of rambling on my core things, but I'm almost out of time. So there we go. I just need the clock here. Go ahead. I got about 5 minutes more of stuff I could say, but there we go. Go ahead, please.
I appreciate that. So I'm going to try to speed run through as well. If I don't get through all of it, there's a flyer in the back that has my 6 points of my vision. It's also on jesse4nkc.com/vision. So here we go. Number one issue that I'm looking at is open communication. It is my major promise is that if you live in North Kansas City, you will be able to get a hold of me. If you send an email, if you phone call, if you want to come to a town hall, I am out there constantly. If you're on the city's neighborhood Facebook page, I'm constantly engaging, answering questions, meeting with people who agree with me, meeting with people who very much do not agree with me, but we find common ground, right? The communication piece is something that I am going to continue to harp on. That includes also partnering with neighboring cities and being just wide open and accessible. Anybody who has tried to reach me, I hope you can attest, you got a response. So I wasted a full minute on that one. That's the most important one. We talked about the stronger community piece. I want to put in a Neighbors Helping Neighbors program where snow shoveling, mowing grass, whatever your neighbor might need help with, you could register to be a point of contact for that. I want to focus on economic development. I feel like up till now we've been reactive, not proactive. I want to have, if it's not a full position at City Hall, at least somebody whose focus is to understand, digest, and push out our economic incentives, what we offer here, how we're small and nimble and easy to work with, and attract those things in that are interesting and useful to our residents. I also want to, fun one, maybe have a farmer's market. Shut down Armour Road for a Saturday and have a nice farmer's market once every so often. Focus on mindful development. We have 100 wide open acres over this direction that are owned by a private developer. Mindful development is the core thing. We're going to have, something's coming, right? And it's going to take common sense leadership. It's going to take somebody who understands development incentives, somebody who understands what needs to be done and is willing to talk to the residents about what they want to see. Infrastructure, Mayor touched on it. We have water, stormwater, and wastewater plans. Very not fun to talk about, not fun to think about, but it's going to be done. It's going to be very expensive. I advocated taking on bonds when rates were 3%. They are no longer 3%, so we're going to have to find another way to pay for that. Focusing on transit, streetcar, buses, KCATA. Number 5, let's see, the safe homes piece, better inspections, better codes enforcement, stepping that up, working on a way that residents can report what they see because we can't see everything. Helping police and fire. Continuing that dialogue with our chief of police because we are up against it with Kansas City, Missouri, just constantly raising what they pay. They are run by the state, and we are not, so we have to compete with them. And finally, healthy resident initiatives, forming a healthy citizens committee with experts from the hospital, the YMCA, dietitians, experts in their field to advise residents on small, healthy changes.
Whoa. Now I know what that sounds like.
You guys are going to love this since you both ran out of time, but we were going to ask you for some final closing statements as well.
Let's go.
Now I can go back up. Oh, it's your turn.
Oh, yeah. All right. We have 3 minutes for this one.
It's your start to go.
In closing, thank you to everyone who came out. This is Tuesday night in the middle of March Madness when Mizzou and Kansas are playing, and you are here listening to us talk. This is amazing. To all those watching online, streaming on Channel 2. Mom, thank you for watching. This is important. This is civic engagement at its finest. It's so fortunate that our city does something like this, that that we put on a forum where we can have this, right? This doesn't happen in most cities. To the debate team, thank you for coming out, asking the hard questions. Man, I was not ready for some of these questions, and I thought, I'm going to sit back and take notes on the first round. These are all new ones, so way to be. You kept us on our toes. A couple things that I just, I want to reemphasize is North Kansas City is a wonderful place to live, work, raise a family. We're going to have our differences on issues. We're going to have some hot button stuff come up. We're going to get heated, but I want to keep that dialogue open. I don't want people to get so frustrated that they disengage. That's when we're at our worst. That's when things go underground. People grumble, people get frustrated, and they say, those jerks at City Hall aren't listening. And that's my promise, is I want you to know that we're listening, that I am listening, and that if you have something to say, to bring it to us, and we're going to talk about it. We might not end on the same page. We might disagree on a final solution, but we're going to listen, and we're going to incorporate your thoughts. Coming to city council meetings can be intimidating and boring, according to my daughters. Coming to that podium to speak is intimidating because you stand up there, you have 3-minute timer. I see how uncomfortable it is now. And you have to speak at us, and we can't even talk back to you. We just kind of go, Carol's done it, right? You come up and say your piece, and we just look at you, and it's uncomfortable. So I want to break those barriers down. If you don't want to come to a city council meeting, come to Cinder Block and have a beer, and we'll sit and have an open discussion. Come to McLean's and have a coffee, and we'll have an open discussion. I want that dialogue. One thing that came up as I've been going around, we talked, there was a question about election sites, which I thought was a good one. We don't have the authority over those, but we are having our election April 8th at the YMCA, and I've asked, I'm still waiting on an answer. Some of my older constituents have said we have trouble walking to the far end of the gym to vote, and I'm hoping to hear back from the Y if we can move that back into the room that's right behind the front desk. Small incremental things to make it easier to engage in the voting process. And the last one, random thing to end on, but water conditions. We have some of the best water in the metropolitan area. We drink from an aquifer, not the river. A lot of breweries and coffee shops have opened in North Kansas City specifically because of how good our water is. So to end on a positive note, drink up.
I feel like I got to start with water. I agree. We do have good water. Regulations are always changing, and so we're staying up to date with that stuff all the time. And our public works crew does a fantastic job of making sure we're always drinking safe water here in North Kansas City. I better run through some thank yous here real quick. They've been very patient, so I'll shout them out again. William and George, thank you. Absolutely could not do anything I ever did without my wife, Anessa, back there, who I think could probably get 90% of the vote if she actually ran. I know she'd do better than I ever could. She's fantastic, and I couldn't do anything without her support. Look, I love North Kansas City. It's a place we chose to raise our kids. We moved here. We loved everything about it. When you look east, downtown, south, downtown, west, there's no neighborhood I could find I thought that fit what we wanted for our future than North Kansas City. And we looked a lot of places. So we settled down here, ran for council because I loved what was going on, loved what we did on council, and wanted to continue that progress. So I ran for mayor. Now we've done a lot of good stuff since I've been mayor, and I want to continue that progress as well. So we've made incredible progress, but there's still a lot to do. From infrastructure upgrades to streetcar to public safety, all the categories. It's a lot to learn. There's a lot going on in town. For a small town, we're a very active, busy town. But very excited about the future in North Kansas City. I thank everyone for coming out tonight and being a part of this. This is huge to have this many people. I was kind of surprised to see this many people. March Madness going on. But yeah, no, thank you, Kim. Thank you, debate team over here. Hope the season's going well. I just state championship a couple years. We're getting back to that again. We close. Is it coming up soon? There we go. Well, hopefully we're up here getting another proclamation because you guys always knock it out over there and do a fantastic job. So appreciate everything you do. Vote April 8th. You can find more on BryantDeLong.com. There's a couple places I'm still trying to fill in stuff because it's basically me trying to fill out my website all the time. So slowly but surely, more and more updates are rolling out. But you can also follow me on 6 different social media channels, I think, and I'm not going to read those all off. Or you can always reach out at 913-636-4325. Shoot me a text, best way. Or just knock on my front door. I think Liz has done it before. Liz Ryan will do it quite frequently. She's not shy to tell us what's going on in town, and so always appreciate Liz, and she will just come beat right on that door, and there we go. I welcome all of you to do the same. I love being out in this community. I love being part of this, and thank you. Thank you, everybody. There we go.
Could I take a second to thank Mayor DeLong? this is tough, right? This is one of those things where we're a community, we're all neighbors, and Mayor DeLong's been a friend of mine for longer than we've both been in civic service. And truth be told, getting to know you was one of the reasons I ended up running for city council. We sat and talked about all sorts of things that we loved about this city, and I know your love for the city is genuine. I think this is we're best when we're both involved here at the leadership level. And no matter what comes out of this, thank you for your involvement. Thank you to your family for their involvement. And this is a tough one, right?
No, thank you. Appreciate that. It's definitely been a very good run for the city. And like I said, there's a lot of good things ahead. So appreciate that. Appreciate we're able to do this. And I don't know who's closing.
So with that,
I'm always looking for the gavel. I
With
usually get the bang.
I'd like everybody to please give Robin and Simon a big. We are so fortunate that you guys have spent your evening with us, and we really, really appreciate it. With that, we'll be signing off. This particular forum will be added to the city's YouTube channel. That way, if maybe your friends and neighbors weren't able to watch or come live, they can watch it later. Again, the election is April 8th from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the North Kansas City YMCA.